Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this important announcement. I would like to begin by specifically noting that Edmonton International Airport is proud to acknowledge the ancestral and traditional territory of Treaty 6. Treaty 6 is the gathering place and traveling route of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. I thoughtfully acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries and whose voices are so important in paving a path forward together in reconciliation. My name is Tom Ruth, and I'm the President and CEO of Edmonton International Airport, and I'll be the host for today's proceedings. I'm also joined by Tara Mulrooney, our Executive Vice President in charge of technology at EIA. I'd like to invite the Minister of Transport, the Honorable Omar Alghabra, to take the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Tom, thank you for that introduction and for your ongoing leadership. Also, I want to thank Tara for her work and leadership at the Edmonton Airport. I'm also very pleased to be joined by my colleague and friend, Minister Vandal. First, I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you today from the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. I'm happy to be joining you once again with more important news for Edmonton International Airport and the Edmonton region. I really enjoyed my visit there last summer, where I saw firsthand the exciting potential for future growth. The global COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on Canada's air sector. La COVID-19 a touché le secteur de transport aérien. And despite the challenges, airports across the country have continued to provide essential air services that have been so important over the last 2 years. I'd like to once again thank airport and air sector workers at Edmonton International who have worked so tirelessly throughout the pandemic. You have continued to ensure that critical cargo, such as food, vaccines, and personal protective equipment, has kept moving across Canada safely and securely. I would also like to commend Edmonton International Airport President and CEO Tom Ruth for his leadership during this challenging time. Merci à vous tous. As Canada works towards the safe and gradual restart of the aviation sector, and believe me, no one wants to see this happen faster than I do. Investments in our airport infrastructure are crucial to maintaining safety, security, and connectivity. That's why I'm pleased to announce that our government will contribute almost $10.5 million to support continued air services and important transportation infrastructure projects at Edmonton International Airport. Notre gouvernement annonce aujourd'hui un investissement de près de 10,5 millions de dollars pour l'aéroport d'Edmonton. This funding provided through the Airport Critical Infrastructure Program will support information technology infrastructure improvements, including new hardware, software, network, and data facilities to increase security and better protect airport from potential cybersecurity and system attacks, the replacement of critical infrastructure to enhance the efficiency and security of airport check-in and boarding, as well as projects to enable COVID-19 testing and screening at the airport. The funding I've just announced builds on the almost $18.5 million I announced last summer to support upgrades to the airport's runway and airfield lighting. It's also in addition to the more than $6 million to help the airport maintain operations and essential air services for residents and workers in Edmonton and surrounding communities. The pandemic has highlighted the important role Canada's airports play in our country's economy and in sustaining the social and economic well-being of our communities. As we look to the future, and the safe reopening of our air travel. Investments in our airports will ensure a vibrant and competitive Canadian aviation sector. The investment I've announced today will allow the Edmonton Airport to continue providing Canadians with safe, reliable, and efficient travel options. Le financement que j'ai annoncé permettra d'assurer la viabilité de l'aéroport d'Edmonton. It will also help ensure the financial health of Canada's airports and help Canada work towards economic recovery and safe travel restart as the pandemic eases. And now I'd like to invite my friend, the Minister responsible for Prairies Economic Development, the Minister responsible for Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency, my friend and colleague, Dan Vandal, to say a few words. Merci. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Ministre Alghabra, pour cette introduction. It's very nice to be here today, albeit virtually. I'd much rather be in your city in person, but it's nice to be here virtually for this important announcement at Edmonton International Airport. Je vous parle aujourd'hui de mon office à Saint-Boniface-Saint-Vital, dans la ville de Winnipeg. I'm talking to you from my constituency office, St. Boniface-Saint-Vital, in the city of Winnipeg, Treaty 1 territory, and homeland of the Métis Nation. I don't have to tell you how hard Canada's airports have been hit by the global COVID-19 pandemic. You've lived it for the last couple of years. And from the start, our government has worked across the country to support Canadians and the businesses and institutions they rely on. And today we are announcing investments through the Airport Critical Infrastructure Program of more than $10 million in the Edmonton International Airport to help it maintain safety, security, and connectivity for travelers, for workers, and for communities. This is in addition to the $18.5 million for the Edmonton International Airport announced last summer for total investments of close to $29 million. As Minister of Northern Affairs and as Minister responsible for Prairies Can and the Canada Northern Economic Development Agency, I fully understand how important the Edmonton Airport is to regional service throughout Alberta, but also in the north and in the Arctic, with many routes to the territories. In fact, I first came through Edmonton Airport on my last trip to Yellowknife, but was also there last fall in my first official trip as Minister of Prairies Can. And as I said before, I can't wait to get back. Through Prairies Can, we've invested $550,000 in the Edmonton International Airport for a new food processing facility, allowing emerging Canadian food innovators access new national and global markets by filling a regional gap in food manufacturing. Additionally, through Prairies Can, our government invested $17.7 million last summer for Leduc County to complete construction of Nisku Spine Road, which will increase accessibility of high volume transportation between Edmonton International Airport and the cities of Beaumont and Leduc, creating jobs and new business opportunities. Through smart investments like these, our government is supporting Edmonton International Airport spur economic growth and build better infrastructure in and around the city of Edmonton. The pandemic has shown us a lot. It's shown us what we can live with and what we can't live without. It's reinforced the important role of that Canada's airports play in our country's economy and in sustaining the social and economic well-being of so many communities. And as we look to a brighter future, Canada's airports will continue to be essential for our economic recovery. Merci beaucoup. Encore, c'est un plaisir d'être présent ici, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Minister Alghabra and Minister Vandal, for sharing this really exciting news. And thanks for hosting this event, especially as busy as all of you are with the Parliament back in session. And Minister Alghabra, you mentioned your summer visit here. I have to say that was a real morale builder for our region and our airport. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. We've got a lot of exciting projects going on in 2022. So we'll look forward to that. Also, just want to say that it's really good to know that we really share mutual concerns and together, and that you continue to empathize with and support Canadian aviation and airports and the important role we play in our communities as a catalytic generator of economic impact and future job growth. I know, and until now, it's hard really to fully express just how important this announcement is for EIA and how thankful we are to both of your ministries and the federal government for this funding. This is still a very critical time for Canada's aviation sector. And here at Edmonton International Airport, we're very optimistic for the future of this great industry. So many people want to continue to connect with family and friends and businesses, and they're excited to see this great big best country of ours and explore beyond our borders as we go forward. But it must be done in a safe way. And we, like our federal government, continue to put the health of Canadians first in everything we do. Many people don't realize that Canada's airports operate as nonprofit entities, and most of our revenues come from passengers in one form or another. With the downturn in passenger traffic, EIA and all airports have struggled over the last 2 years. Thank you, ministers, for your government's recognition that airports need additional support during these unprecedented times, until sometime in the future when passenger traffic returns close to pre-pandemic levels. Today's funding will make it possible for our airport to go ahead with important modernization work on our information and technology systems. For passengers, this means even more online and digital security when you're at EIA. And these improvements will further enhance systems such as public access Wi-Fi and the protection of personal information for travelers. For the second pool of funding related to our passenger check-in systems, we're excited to help lead a change for passengers that will see EIA and several other major Canadian airports work together to harmonize the check-in process. The pandemic has brought airports closer together to find ways to combine our efforts, and in some cases, even combining purchasing power and working together in non-competitive ways. The check-in process is something common at every airport, but every airport does it a little different, with different machines and different procedures. Ultimately, we're here to serve passengers, and we have realized there's no good reason why we can't work together with other airports so that check-in procedures become similar and consistent at participating airports. It will save us money by working together, and when it's complete in the coming years, passengers will see a harmonized system across several major Canadian airports. So in closing, thank you again, Ministers Alghabra and Vandal, for your government's recognition of the importance of these issues and opportunities, and for showing leadership and stepping forward to help Edmonton International Airport, our passengers, and our region. This important funding from the federal government will help us focus our resources in core areas, making sure we can continue to provide accelerated air service for our communities and support job growth and economic recovery. From the thousands of people working at our airport community and the many more supporting our visitor economy, we sincerely thank you and the federal government. At this point, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind media to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question during the Q&A session. And now, I'm pleased to turn it over to Laura Lennox, the press secretary to Minister Alghabra, who will open the floor for questions.
Thanks, Tom. So we're going to get started with the Q&A portion of the event. It's one question and one follow-up per reporter. Alors, nous allons maintenant commencer avec la période de questions. C'est une question et une question de suivi. So just a reminder again, if anyone wants to ask a question, you can use the raise hand function. I'll give it a few seconds for people to raise their hands. Okay, so we have Liam Ford. Liam, you can go ahead and just identify the outlet that you represent.
I'm with Information News. We cover public-private partnerships in the US and Canada. And I just wanted to see if you could say if any of the portions of this funding, such as the multi-airport check-in, might be handled through a P3 process.
Liam, thank you for the question. I'll try to take a jab at this. All of the funding that we announced, and we've dedicated a significant amount of funding over the last 2 years to support airports during this challenging period, is in response to applications submitted by airports and airports authorities. They package the request. They identify what projects they want to do, and then they end up deciding who to work with in partners to execute and deliver on these projects. So that will be up to the airports authority to decide who to partner with to execute on these projects.
Liam, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's okay. I will check in with the individual airport authorities then. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there another media outlet that would like to ask a question? If so, you can raise your hand. So we have Regina Johnson. You can go ahead and just identify the outlet that you represent.
Hi, my name is Regina Johnson, and I'm calling from Air Cargo World in America, United States. And I was wondering if any of the funding would be used towards improving or building out cargo facilities.
Thank you, Regina, for your question and for participating in this press conference. Look, when I visited Edmonton in person last summer, I had an opportunity to speak with the CEO, Tom Ruth, and we talked about the exciting potential for the Edmonton Airport and for its region. I know this is one of the projects that they're excited about. So there is an ongoing application for funding support right now that is being reviewed by our government. So that process is ongoing. But the one thing I can tell you that the future for the Edmonton Airport is exciting, and I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can to assist in realizing that potential.
Regina, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. No, I'm good.
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand on Zoom. I'll give it a few more seconds if anyone wants to ask a question. All right, so I think this concludes the Q&A portion of the event. Tom, I'll turn it back over to you for closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Laurel. And that concludes today's event. We really want to thank everybody for joining us for this exciting day.
Thank you, everyone. Great job. Bye-bye.